This is 8 Minutes, a podcast helping you understand the energy and climate challenge in just a few minutes. I'm your host, Paul Schuster. The Greenhouse Gas Protocol Corporate Standard governs how companies report on their greenhouse gas emissions. First published in 2004, the protocol has taken on increasing importance, not only as more and more companies are reporting emissions, but as changing technologies and a rapid ramp-up in renewable power has tested old ways of thinking about accounting methodologies. For the last couple of years, the World Resources Institute and the World Business Council for Sustainable Development, the two entities that oversee the GHG Protocol, have been taking a hard look at existing carbon accounting methods, specifically around whether companies can use market-based accounting or location-based accounting in their reporting. The outcome of those deliberations could be significant, affecting not just the reporting, but how companies invest in the decarbonization strategies of their businesses. 8 minutes. It's how long it takes the sun's race to hit Earth, or about how long it took Chappell Roan to go from obscurity to a major pop star. We're all hot to go. Let's get it on. The GHG Protocol has only been around for 20 years, but a lot has happened over that time period. Renewable energy is coming online at a frantic pace, and more companies than ever are aligning themselves with net zero aspirations. As such, the WRI and WBCSD, the two entities overseeing the GHG protocol, they're digging into the old methodologies and seeing whether they still work in today's environment. Of critical importance is the concept of market-based versus location-based accounting. As wonky as it is to be talking accounting methodologies, the debate around which accounting methodology to use has attracted an incredible amount of attention in the sustainability space. Over 400 entities responded to a market survey launched last year soliciting input on Scope 2 methods, and an additional 343 entities submitted comments on a broader survey around market versus location-based methodologies. The reason why it's getting so much attention is because the protocol's final determination is going to have a significant impact on how corporations go about decarbonizing in the first place. The terms, market-based and accounting-based, come from the way the GHG protocol has been looking at Scope 2 emissions for the past 2 decades. Scope 2 are those emissions that come from a company's use of electricity or steam or heat. If your facility is using a lot of electricity in the middle of, say, coal-heavy Indiana, that electricity usage may require a coal plant to stay in business and emit a lot of carbon. Companies would address that in a few ways. First, figure out how to use less power in the first place, but then maybe invest in renewable energy so that the power you consume can at least be clean. The way to ensure that you're supporting renewable power is through an environmental attribute certificate. Those certificates go by different names in different countries. In Europe, they may be known as guarantees of origin, while here in the US, they're called renewable energy certificates, or RECs. One REC equates to 1 megawatt hour of renewably generated power. And under a market-based standard, companies can apply 1 REC to 1 megawatt hour of their energy usage to essentially offset their load. But that REC could be from just about anywhere. Our theoretical company in Indiana, for instance, could buy RECs from Texas and support wind or solar power down there and count those benefits against their Midwestern facility. The location-based methodology is a bit stricter and instead looks at the power grid into which your facility is connected. It evaluates the amount of coal and gas and oil-generated power being used, assigns an emission factor to those generating units, and calculates out a weighted factor that can be used to determine the physical related emissions of the factory. Advocates for this approach argue that this is much more realistic of a reporting structure, as the power that the facility actually uses should be what determines the emissions. And looking at the actual delivered energy can be more impactful because the emissions intensity of the grid could change from hour to hour if, for instance, a lot of solar is used during the day and gas power is used during the night. A more detailed evaluation of physical emissions may be needed in order to derive more effective decarbonization solutions. Advocates on the other side, for market-based rules, point out that being more flexible on the accounting enables more options on investment into renewable power and decarbonization. If limited to just the local power grid, there may be structural or other issues that prevent a company from investing. And what we need is more investment into clean technology, not less. And regarding the hourly emissions argument, market-based advocates contend that the challenge of measuring, accounting for, and tracking those emissions would make the task prohibitively expensive for all but the largest of companies, which complicates the GHG protocol's goal. Do they emphasize, in a sense, accuracy, or do they stress participation and investment? There may not be a correct answer. An investment into an area overly saturated with renewable energy may not be highly impactful. But if driving towards locational-based rules means that a number of companies stop investing at all, today the GHG protocol allows either methodology to be used for Scope 2 accounting, kind of a kick the can down the road as we figure out what's quote-unquote right. But the WRI and WBCSD are trying to figure out whether to consolidate accounting into one methodology come next year. What's more, that dual accounting option today is only available for Scope 2 reporting. There's an inconsistency as to how Scopes 1 and 3 are accounted for, as only Scope 2 allows for this market-based approach. Does the protocol remove market-based completely, consolidate the approaches, and focus on accuracy? Or does it go the other way and introduce market-based solutions for things like supply chain emissions, where a company could possibly purchase RECs to offset the emissions being generated across their value chain? The implications are important. For one thing, thousands of companies today rely upon market-based solutions to reach their sustainability goals. Are those PPAs and VPPAs suddenly worthless if the protocol changes to a location-based measurement? Is there a weird grandfathering clause that gets implemented? And how would one track that? And if market-based processes are tossed out, what impact will that have on renewable investment? Will we see a corresponding increase in more localized solutions or not? And is it even the responsibility of an accounting organization to incentivize activity, or should they really be focused on accuracy and let the industry figure out how best to respond to that? This is a wonky issue, deep in how the world looks at carbon and emissions, but the resulting decision by the GHG protocol could have significant implications. The WRI and WBCSD continue to discuss options with interested stakeholders, and they've posted comments and suggestions on their website to help guide a transparent review of the issue. Their goal is to have revised standards released in 2025, which means that a lot of corporate sustainability decisions over the course of the next year are going to be made in something of an uncertain haze. With everything else going on in politics and financial markets, let's add the uncertainty of carbon accounting to our list of challenges too. I'm Paul Schuster, and this has been your 8 Minutes.